Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to News Dose, and we have more Game Pass games to talk about today because why not? That's just what they do. And as you would expect, their next lineup of games includes various Day 1 titles, a couple of which I'm personally very, very excited about. So, we're going to dive into all of that today, and then also some new details for the PlayStation 5 Pro. One of the big talking points around this next console has been about how are they going to market this thing. The PlayStation 5 technically already supports 4K resolution, 8K if you want to go by the box, and most games do support 60 FPS. So, what exactly is going to be the big buzzword for their marketing campaign? And thanks to a new leak, it sounds like Sony kind of tipped their hat. So we will get into all of that as well. Before we get started though, do make sure to subscribe. That way every time I post a new video, you'll be notified. If you like gaming news, hit those buttons below, and I know about 50% of my viewers still aren't subscribed. So let's go and change that today. With that said, though, let's just go and get right into things, starting off with a new Nintendo showcase. Yes, they just announced a new Nintendo Indie World, which is set for tomorrow on April 17th. It will go live at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, so go and set your alarms for hopefully a fun event. I guess that's how we can kind of describe this event right now, though, because there is currently a lot of hope for a few games to show up at this showcase. And no doubt about it, that all starts off with Hollow Knight Silksong. I mean, by this point, this is legitimately one of the most anticipated independent games ever made. And the thing is that there's been a lot of development for Silksong over the last month, with it showing up on some different rating boards. And of course, Xbox also seemingly teased it as well. That's kind of where I become a little bit more skeptical, though. See, Silksong is a big Xbox Game Pass game, a game that they've heavily advertised in the past. So, with that, I'm not entirely convinced that it will show up during a Nintendo showcase. Now, I mean, I would love for this to show up in tomorrow's showcase, because I'm super excited for this game. So I don't want to wait any longer than what you all do. But all I'm trying to say here is that I am tempering my expectations going into this event. We've already been let down just so many times before, so I don't know. Hopefully, I'll be able to come in tomorrow and just say that I'm wrong. But the way I look at this is that if Silksong doesn't show up at this event, then I'd look towards the Xbox Summer Showcase this June. Either which way, though, there are a couple of other interesting games that fans are anxiously hoping to see. Pizza Tower is one of those games. This is a great PC exclusive as of this moment. I actually had this one on the Steam Deck myself, and it is a brilliant mix of Wario and Sonic. It's a lot of fun, and that would be a great announcement for the Switch. Then there's also Plucky Squire. This is a very unique game that combines 3D and 2D environments by going in and out of a storybook type of setting. It's a really unique and interesting idea. I really hope this one turns out to be as good as it looks. So for sure, I mean, there could be some cool announcements tomorrow. Definitely tune in. But of course, as always, if you do miss it yourself, I'll keep you updated in tomorrow's video. Now, we also got a new RAYMAN game announcement. Well, kind of. Okay, so that was a little bit mean of me to start this topic that way, but Ubisoft is legitimately acknowledging the RAYMAN IP by releasing a new board game later this year in 2024. You can see its picture here, and not too much is known about it just yet, but I'd say for just the figurines alone, it looks high quality. I'm actually low-key kind of interested in this board game. Sure, okay, it's not exactly what I was thinking when I asked Ubisoft to make a new RAYMAN game, but I still do kind of take this as a positive sign. At the bare minimum, Ubisoft hasn't forgotten about the RAYMAN IP, and who knows, maybe there's more interest bubbling up inside of Ubisoft. Over the last couple of years, they have kind of turned a corner and realized, hey, they have other franchises besides just Assassin's Creed and Far Cry. I mean, who would have thought? Not us fans that's been begging for years, but, you know, we are starting to see the return of games like Prince of Persia and even Splinter Cell. So hopefully that initiative also continues with RAYMAN as well. Maybe it will also get some consideration. In the meantime, though, if you're interested in this board game, head over to their website. I will leave a link in the description below, and you can go ahead and sign up. That way you'll get notified once they have more updates to share. Okay, so let's go talk about the PlayStation 5 Pro, though. This is by far the worst kept secret of 2024. Almost everything about this console has leaked out by this point, except for its price tag and its exact release date. Now, it is expected to release this holiday, but we don't know its exact release date. Now, if you're unaware, though, as a quick summary, the PS5 Pro will offer 45% faster GPU rendering. There will be an optional CPU boost of up to 10%. They freed up an additional 1.2 gigabytes of RAM that can be applied to games, and it also has its own in-house AI upscaling technology, PSSR. Now, I still think that's the most interesting aspect of this console, because if their upscaling technology is comparable to something like NVIDIA DLSS, that will be a major upgrade over what they have currently in AMD FSR. So I'll be very curious to see PSSR in action. According to some of the early leaks, it is quite impressive. But even then, there is one big question for this new console. How exactly will Sony market it? Yes, it is more powerful than the current PlayStation 5, but the PS5 is no slouch either. It's not a very old console, and a lot of people that already own it are looking at those specs that I just mentioned, and they're wondering why. Why do we need this thing? They already paid good money for that current PlayStation 5, so why should they upgrade? And okay, that's a fair question. If you already own a PlayStation 5, you're going to look at this thing with a critical eye. Is it actually worth an upgrade? And Sony is really going to have to put their best foot forward to give those consumers a reason as to why. So how exactly did they go about doing that? Well, from the sounds of it, a key part of their strategy will center around a feature that never really took off with the current consoles. If you remember right, leading up to the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X, one of the biggest buzzwords was ray tracing, a beautiful feature that was meant to transform console games and push them to the next graphical level. And sure, ray tracing does look good when you're standing still. Unfortunately for us, though, as soon as you start moving, you'll notice that ray tracing doesn't exactly come without a huge sacrifice to game performance. And because of that, most people don't actually use those ray tracing options. Well, according to the leaks, the PlayStation 5 Pro will be much more prepared for ray tracing with better performance. In fact, according to The Verge, their sources claim that developers are already being asked to ensure their games are compatible with this upcoming console with a focus on improving ray tracing. The article then goes on to say that all of Sony's changes point to a PlayStation 5 Pro that will be far more capable of rendering games with ray tracing enabled or hitting higher resolutions and frame rates in certain titles. Sony appears to be encouraging developers to use graphics features like ray tracing more with the PS5 Pro, with games able to use a PS5 Pro Enhanced label if they provide significant enhancements. Now, to be fair here, this entire PlayStation 5 Pro Enhanced label seems very lax. From my understanding, there seems to be a lot of different ways to get that label, and it doesn't really seem like Sony is being overly picky with those. Under ideal circumstances, The Verge also said sources familiar with Sony's plans tells them that Sony is asking developers to create a new PS5 Pro exclusive graphics mode in games that combines Sony's new PSSR upscaling to 4K resolution with 60 FPS frame rate and ray tracing effects. So, in a way, the PlayStation 5 Pro is aiming for those initial dreams that fans had originally when we first came into this generation. 4K resolution at 60 FPS without all of those sacrifices. Maybe even ray tracing for some games with actual good performance. For the current PS5, though, you mostly have to choose between a performance mode and a graphics mode for most games. But the PS5 Pro, on the other hand, it does seem like it's aiming to make the performance mode look much more similar to what we see in those graphics modes. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth as one such example. I think this is the perfect game to look at. Its performance mode does not look great. There's been a lot of complaints over its performance mode. It's very blurry, and it's often described as having a Vaseline filter. With the PS5 Pro, though, the idea is to make that performance mode look more similar to what you see visually in that graphics mode. So I think for a lot of people, that could actually be worth it. Now, that's not the only improvement, though, because The Verge also mentioned an Ultra Boost mode, which will make some older games perform better. They said, I understand that the PS5 Pro will have an Ultra Boost mode that will help VRR modes run at a higher frame rate, and games with a variable resolution may render at higher resolutions. Overall frame rates may be more stable in certain games too. So in that instance, the first game that comes to mind for me is Final Fantasy XVI. Currently, Final Fantasy XVI in graphics mode is very unstable with an unlocked frame rate. So there is actually a chance that it could play closer to 60 FPS on that Pro model. Now that's just a prediction, but overall, I do understand that there's a lot of skepticism for the PS5 Pro, and I think rightfully so. The PS5, it's not all that old. Fans already paid good money to get that PS5. But, at the same time, I do look at these leaks, and I think that they are interesting. PSSR, to me, still remains the big question mark, but I think under the right price, I could see real interest for this new model, which allegedly is planned to run alongside the current model as is. Let me know what you all think about all of this, though. Right now, from what we currently know, is that PS5 Pro interesting or not to you? All right, so let's go and talk about Xbox Game Pass, though. That's always a lot of fun to talk about because they always have something in store that's interesting. And, well, I'd say that the tail end of April is filled with exactly that. As we can see here, the latter half of April includes Another Crab's Treasure, Iodine Chronicle 100 Heroes, Have a Nice Death, Orcs Must Die 3, NHL 24, and Manor Lords for PC. Now, I will go ahead and add Harold Halibut to this list as well. That is another day one game that released just today. Currently has a 73 overall score on Metacritic, and it seems to be a very love it or hate it type of game. It is very unique, and you can kind of immediately see that with its just striking art style. It's just very, very different, but if you want to try it, it's described as a handmade narrative adventure game about friendship and life on a city-sized spaceship submerged in an alien ocean. So if that sounds interesting to you, then definitely go check it out. It is available right now. For me, though, the one that I'm most looking forward to is Another Crab's Treasure. This is yet another Day 1 Game Pass release, and it will launch on April 25th. I've had this game on my radar for quite a while, and, it's a shells-like platformer. You can swap different shells for your armor, and it just really seems like it has a lot of charm for a Souls-like type of game, which is something that we don't often see for this genre. If anything, this is a completely new twist for these Souls-like games, and I genuinely hope this game turns out to be as good as it looks. I'll also say the same thing for Iodine Chronicle 100 Heroes. This was a Kickstarter project years ago, and it immediately smashed its goals. I mean, honestly, it's kind of easy to understand why. This is a beautiful HD 2D JRPG developed by the creator of Suikoden. In fact, it's actually a spiritual successor to that series, and fans are tired of waiting for Konami to do anything with that franchise. So here comes Iodine Chronicle 100 Heroes, and, it has the pedigree. It looks good, it has the talent, and now hopefully it plays just as good. If anything else, if you're subscribed to Game Pass, you'll find out for yourself on April 23rd. Now, I will also say don't sleep on Have a Nice Death. This is a roguelike 2D action platformer where you play as an overworked death whose employees have run rampant. It's one of the more well-received roguelikes on the market. It has an 81 overall score on Metacritic, and if you look on Steam, 86% of all of its reviews recommends it. So this is absolutely another game worth a look when it comes to Game Pass on April 30th. I know there's also some anticipation for Manor Lords as well, though. This might not be a game that necessarily speaks to me per se, but I have seen some interest for this one, and it will be launching into Game Pass Day 1 on April 26th. This is just its game preview for the time being, but it's a medieval strategy game that features in-depth city building, large-scale tactical battles, and complex economic and social simulations. So, as always, when it comes to Game Pass, there's no shortage on games to choose from. Yeah, absolutely. Gotta love it. Anyways, though, that's going to be it for this video, but do let me know what you all think about that PlayStation 5 Pro and all of its leaked information. And for you Rayman fans out there, well, we technically got a new game today, so a small win, I guess. But anyways, until next time, peace out.